Welcome to Magic Box Story Time with me, Lottie. We're going to find out what happens in Chapter 3 of The Tale of the Lost and Found. Linda and her team of new helpers have just crossed the frozen lake, are just outside Bear Cage Mansion. Will they rescue Fred the Ted? Chapter 3, Handles. After they'd all rested and had a sip of coffee, they looked around and saw the gleaming gates to Bear Cage Mansion just a few steps away. But Linda wasn't happy. "Oh dear," she said. "The gates are open, but look, there's a guard." They looked, there was. And he was big, with a helmet and knee pads. Whispering, Linda asked her team for ideas again, but the only one who had any was the red anorak skipping person. He said, what about conjuring up a witch who could then put a spell on the guard? Linda said she wasn't trained in conjuring and didn't know any witches. "How about I read him a story?" she said. "That always sends people to sleep." She pulled a book out of her backpack, opened it, and began to read. No sooner had she uttered the first 7 words than the guard slumped to the ground and began snoring. "Good job he was wearing knee pads," said Jenny with a yawn. "Oh, Linda's reading had made her team a bit sleepy too, so she quickly got everyone up on their feet. "Right, team," she said, "let's creep past, tiptoes. I don't want to hear any heels on that ground." As they crept, as quietly as boiled eggs, past a snoozing guard, Linda put the book back in her backpack and took out a little box. Once through the gates, she opened it. Her team saw it was full of the little plastic bricks they all loved building things with. "Ever stepped on one of these by mistake?" Linda asked. The team nodded. They had. Stepping on their favourite little plastic bricks was the kind of painful experience that was impossible to forget. "I don't know how long that guard will be asleep for," said Linda, "but how about we slow him down if he wakes up and tries to follow us?" Luke, Jenny, and the team smiled. They liked the way Linda's mind worked. Everyone took a little plastic brick and put it on the footpath. Linda took off the guard's black boots. Looking very satisfied, she nodded and said, "Oh yes, that's going to hurt his feet and no mistake." They crept on through the front garden of Bear Cage Mansion. It was big and looked pretty much like gardens of mansions tend to look. Rose bushes, fountains, seahorse-shaped bushes, that kind of thing. But then someone stepped on a handbag, and then so did Linda and Jenny. They all crouched down to examine the bags, and as they did so, they became aware of a shadow looming behind them and a musty, leathery kind of smell. Everyone turned round and went, "Huh?" Blocking their path, actually blocking out most of the daylight, was the weirdest thing they'd ever seen. "Is that Mount Everest?" asked Skipping Red Anorak. "Don't be silly," snapped someone. "Mount Everest is on the Isle of Wight." "No, it isn't," said Jenny. "It's in the Himalayas." Linda was shaking her head. "No, team," she said. "We are not regarding the highest peak in the world. I've heard office talk about this. That is no natural mountain. It is Countess Tatiana's legendary Bag Mountain." "What?" "Do what?" said Luke, picking up a glittery clutch bag and giving it a sniff. Linda explained. "She's so bonkers, Tatiana nick a teddy off. She uses a new bag every time she nicks a teddy and then just chucks it away. And so, voila, that's French. This is the result. Bag Mountain." It was enormous and made of every type of bag you could think of. Handbags, Shoulder bags, clutch bags, tote bags, shopping bags, fashionable backpacks, duffel bags. Luke even saw a couple of potato sacks and one of those baskets that French people take to the market with them. They stared gloomily at the massive pile blocking their way. "Another obstacle for us, team?" said Linda. "Any suggestions?" "How do you beat a bag? I mean bags. They're a tricky foe." Nobody knew what to say. They were all so flabbergasted by the fact that a mountain made of bags existed that all their ideas dried up like spaghetti leftovers in a heat wave. Linda realised she had to rally her troops. She stood up. She'd sat down first. I didn't tell you before because I didn't think it was important. I was wrong. "OK, team," said Linda. "We won't be beaten by Mount Baggage. It might be made of bags, but it's still a mountain. And what do you do with mountains?" "Look at them and go home?" said Skipping Red Anorak. "No," said Linda. "You climb them. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Should be quite easy, actually, because there are a lot of bag handles to hang on to. So, let's give it a whirl." They really weren't sure. No one much liked the idea of falling off, but Linda said she had a box of plasters in her backpack, so after that they didn't have any more excuses and just had to get on with it. Linda went first and called out helpful tips. "Grab that leather one, Jenny. And that fluffy one, Luke. Oh, the velvet one with that chain strap looks useful." Inch by inch, they moved up the mountain. It was weird. It was slippery. It was full of buckles and zips, and it was nothing like how climbing a mountain was supposed to be. But eventually, they all made it to the summit. The view from the top was splendid. They could see the roof of Bear Cage Mansion, the tops of all the fir trees, and way off in the distance, a supermarket where they knew there would be chocolate. Climbing mountains always makes you fancy a bit of chocolate. But they couldn't admire the view for long. No sooner had the last trainee finder clambered over the last bag than Linda said, Oh, I'm feeling movement. Oh, I'm sinking. I'm sinking. Team, there are so many of us on the top now, our combined weight is squashing the bags. We're defeating Bag Mountain. Oh, let's really put this mountain to bed, team. Jump, jump. They did. They jumped like they were made out of springs. The bags got flatter and flatter. It was incredibly satisfying. Soon the mountain was no more than a puddle of bags beneath their feet. "Oh, yes," said Linda. "Flat as a reusable carrier." She did a little fist pump. Yeah. And so did everyone else. They felt good. Ahead of them were the vast brick and marble walls of Bear Cage Mansion. Linda pointed to the front door. "Time to get Fred the Ted," she said. And that's the end of chapter 3. I wonder what will happen in the last chapter. Come back and find out. Thanks very much for listening to Magic Box Storytime with Lottie. Bye-bye for now.